A razor-sharp blade meticulously scrapes feathers from a freshly slaughtered chicken. Spiced meat skewers sizzle intensely over a glowing, smoky charcoal grill. Calloused hands firmly bind the chicken's feet with thin, coarse twine. Distorted faces scream in terror as a chaotic crowd surges forward. A lone rider gallops desperately through the vast, dusty, and desolate landscape. Rocket walks beside a friend, questioning the lethal risk of taking photographs. The boys sprint frantically through narrow, winding alleys to escape impending capture. A startled chicken flaps its wings, narrowly dodging a heavy black bumper. A defiant voice whispers that the encroaching enemy must locate him first. He stands frozen, knowing that running away invites only certain, brutal death. Rocket glances backward, scanning the claustrophobic streets for any sign of pursuit. A boy screams at his companion to retrieve the ball with insults. He claims the ball, challenging the other boy to a dangerous confrontation. The young group gathers on the sun-baked dirt, watching the ball play. They peer upward toward the sky, anticipating the ball's sudden, inevitable descent. The weathered ball rolls slowly across the dry, cracked earth of home. Childhood friends laugh uncontrollably, oblivious to the grim fate awaiting their streets. They carry stolen goods through the housing project, moving with practiced stealth. Goose commands the younger boys to advance under the cover of shadows. A small boy with a cloth mask raises a pistol, aiming steadily. He demands money from the terrified delivery men huddled near gas tanks. They scatter into the blinding sunlight, fleeing the sudden appearance of police. Goose wails in pain, clutching his side as they hide in the deep brush. Shaggy frantically urges him to reach out, begging for a desperate escape from the woods. The men gather in the shadows, questioning each other about what they truly witnessed tonight. One man stares into the dark trees, sensing danger lurking nearby in the dense foliage. He peers into the blackness, unable to see how their enemies navigate the night. Fury overcomes him as he growls a vow to exterminate the ones stalking them. The boy stares with wide, haunting eyes, reflecting the terror of the ongoing hunt. The silence holds, but the boy's gaze remains fixed, trapped in the crushing atmosphere. The men scale the trees, listening intently for any sound of their hidden prey. He curses the sudden gunfire, swearing to kill anyone he catches in his sights. A lone figure dashes across a desolate concrete alleyway, vanishing into the night's embrace. Shaggy bolts upright, gasping as he realizes the police are closing in on him. He curses, realizing his assumption that the officers would leave was a fatal error. Rocket recounts his chilling vision to Goose, his voice trembling under the heavy canopy. Goose acknowledges their grim history, confirming their shared past of dangerous, illicit work. Rocket steps tentatively through the foliage, his heart pounding with the fear of discovery. He walks past rows of uniform houses, reciting a prayer to soothe his soul. He finds solace in the verses, trusting in his faith to shield him today. The brutal motel raid becomes history, whispered about as the bloodiest event ever known. They corner a laborer, sneering that they will force him into the criminal life. The father stands tall, warning his son that he will kill him if stolen money appears. The boy desperately tries to justify his schooling, rejecting the path of a common thug. A bare-chested brute slams his fist against a wall, demanding money from the terrified boys. The young spectacled boy confesses his desperate desire to escape the suffocating poverty of the ghetto. He unearths hidden remnants of a life he hopes to leave behind in the dark dirt. A golden sunset fades over the silent, sprawling concrete maze of the underdeveloped housing project. Police vehicles and reporters descend upon the neighborhood, swarming the site of a violent crime. A woman stands defiantly in the road, blocking the path of an old, rusted sedan. She refuses to yield, hurling insults and threats at the men inside the battered vehicle. Inside the car, a young man points a heavy revolver, barking orders for them to push. The car rolls forward under duress while military police conduct routine investigations nearby in the dust. An official checks paperwork, barely noticing the tension escalating between the locals and the authorities. The boy looks out from the vehicle, watching a couple walk away toward the horizon. An argument erupts inside the car as the woman screams for the driver to stop. The man jumps out, sprinting away into the distance as the car continues to roll. The woman clutches the wheel, her face twisted in fear as the vehicle glides alone. The car drifts aimlessly through the desolate, dusty streets of the quiet housing project. An overhead view shows the car finally coming to rest amidst the sparse, sun-baked landscape. The victim lies motionless on the ground, while the crowd begins to gather in shock. Onlookers surround the body, their faces etched with the somber reality of another local death. The boy reflects on his lifelong obsession with owning a camera to document their struggle. They walk past a girl in a bikini who refuses to join them on the beach. He smiles, explaining the illicit nature of the high-quality drugs available through the top dealers. He stands on the sand, ready to capture life through his lens as the war escalates. Rocket captures the tense negotiation of territory under the flickering lights. He recounts the history of a brother's former lover and a flashy car. Two figures huddle in the darkness, plotting the shift toward a cocaine-fueled economy. A man whispers promises of absolute power to a vulnerable listener in the shadows. He stands amidst flickering memorial candles, contemplating the gravity of his dangerous ambition. A rusted red vehicle sits abandoned, marking the quiet before the encroaching storm. The gang converges to systematically dismantle a rival's established criminal racket. A lone figure navigates the narrow, labyrinthine alleys of the neighborhood at dawn. He returns to his residence, only to find it occupied by encroaching forces. The intruder asserts dominance, demanding complete submission from the panicked occupant. He forces the terrified youth into servitude to ensure his own survival. The gang identifies the new recruit as the brother of a fallen comrade. He dictates the terms of the new drug-selling enterprise with lethal finality. A silhouette watches the sunrise from a rooftop, treating crime like a legitimate business. He explains the career ladder, starting from lowly lookouts to hardened soldiers. The local police are bought off, receiving their share to maintain the silence. A man inside a car claims the area remains peaceful, ignoring the rot. A deal is struck between two youths under the cover of a graffiti-stained wall. One youth fears for his life but remains tethered to the intoxicating allure of drugs. He finds solace in the company of a woman on the beach, clutching photographs. The group gathers on the sand, passing a joint in a moment of fleeting peace. A young man buys food, unaware that he will soon be a target of violence. Angry dealers debate the police presence in the favela. Little Zay mocks his subordinate's weakness. He insults the young man's lack of resolve. The gang members loot a bakery for food. Residents flee as the bandits seize their territory. They occupy a strategic building to exert control. A child stands frozen behind a metal gate. Little Zay looms over the terrified young boy. They sit together eating stolen fried chicken. The older gangsters march through the narrow alleyway. They offer the child a chance to join. The boy learns the brutal rules of hierarchy. The gang forces the children to jump fences. Little Zay threatens a child with a firearm. He demands the boy choose his own fate. The victim forces the boy to make choices. The child screams in agony as violence erupts. The gang leaders argue over the kill order. Little Zay forces the new recruit to shoot. The boy finally kills, proving his grim worth. He earns the approval of his ruthless mentors. The cycle of bloodshed claims another lost soul. Benny orchestrates a final, vibrant goodbye party for his associates in the crowded space. He laughs with the crowd, embracing the freedom before his intended departure from crime. Benny shares a moment of reflection with his peers regarding his future and faith. The dance floor pulsates with rhythmic energy as local revelers sway to the music. Lil Zay prowls the perimeter of the party, his eyes tracking every movement with suspicion. He approaches a woman, aggressively asserting his presence amidst the swaying crowd of dancers. The woman recoils from his intense gaze, visibly uncomfortable as he attempts to engage. Music blares through the speakers, masking the underlying tension simmering within the packed room. Lil Zay forces his attention onto the woman, ignoring her obvious lack of interest. Others intervene, questioning the validity of his sudden outburst and his target's choices. He argues heatedly, defending his actions while others attempt to calm his volatile temper. The conflict peaks as he declares his frustration, unable to maintain his composure longer. A brief flashback reveals a younger version of them, laughing together in simpler times. Back in the club, he gestures wildly, still obsessed with controlling the social dynamic. The crowd continues to shift around them, oblivious to the brewing storm of violence. Laughter rings out from a nearby group, sharply contrasting with the darkening mood nearby. Benny attempts to regain control of the room, still hoping to salvage his departure. A sudden surge of movement pushes bodies against the walls, creating a frantic atmosphere. Shadows deepen as a silhouette maneuvers toward the exit with a concealed, lethal intent. The exit beckons into the dark, unwelcoming alleyway where the ultimate betrayal is waiting. A single, devastating gunshot rings out, silencing the music and the laughter instantly. The community realizes the tragedy as chaos erupts, leaving Benny lifeless on the ground. Grief stalls the crowd as the realization of the violent loss freezes everyone in place. Lil Zay stands over the body, his face twitching with an unstable, confused rage. He discharges his weapon into the air, signaling the end of the fragile truce. Darkness envelops the streets as shadows of armed men emerge to claim the territory. Figures move through the corridors, preparing for the inevitable eruption of full-scale gang warfare. Young children watch from high balconies, their eyes reflecting the coming storm below them. The narrator considers the myth of the hero, now buried under layers of cycle violence. Street urchins huddle against mural-painted walls, waiting for the chaos to finally subside today. They sit on a rusted sedan, discussing the erratic and deadly moods of the leaders. Tired of being used, the boys contemplate their options in the escalating turf struggle. A message is delivered to the rival leader, demanding a brutal sacrifice for peace. The ultimatum is clear: kill the target and the territory remains under his control. Tensions rise in the dim room as the choice between survival and honor remains. He threatens the men with death, demanding absolute loyalty to the current power structure. Desperate for control, they justify their cruelty as a necessary cost for maintaining order. The leader dismisses the gathered men as expendable machines serving his absolute iron rule. The young boy listens intently, his face hardening as he weighs a lethal offer. He agrees to the terms, effectively sealing the fate of the man marked for death. The room falls into a heavy silence as the men process the cold decision. They shift uneasily, their hands near their holsters, anticipating the next act of bloodshed. He asserts his dominance, reminding everyone that this vendetta belongs solely to him alone. The meeting concludes with an ominous warning for anyone lacking the heart for war. Rocket argues with a man over the content of his camera lens. He captures images of armed gang members while they pose with weapons. One gang member aggressively warns the photographer to back off immediately. The youth hands over his camera to a man for development. The technician examines the negatives to process the requested enlargements. She inspects the finished photos and prepares them for the client. Rocket waits in a vehicle as dusk falls over the city. He realizes the photographs have placed a target on his back. A woman confronts him about the misplaced photos in the lab. She demands the prints back while others watch the heated exchange. He identifies himself as Rocket during the tense journalistic standoff. The editor explains that they pay professionals to document the favela. She claims no professional has ever survived inside the gang-controlled zone. The editor offers payment if he can successfully capture the reality inside. Rocket reflects on the dangerous offer while wiping sweat from his face. He learns to adjust the light levels on his vintage camera equipment. The editor questions if the boy is positioned too close to the subjects. She invites him into her home to provide a place to rest. She directs him toward the only available room in the small house. She insists he sleep in the same room as her for the night. He recalls the events that marked his transition into a new, dangerous life. Young boys brandish pistols and dream of holding up anyone they choose. Children swarm the street with handguns drawn while the camera pans across the chaos. An abrupt explosion sends shockwaves through the alleyway and throws the boys to ground. Lil Zay screams orders as the street turns into a lethal, bullet-ridden death trap. Gunfire echoes through the narrow passage as the rival factions engage in brutal combat. Knockout Ned charges into the fray with his rifle leveled against the advancing militants. The combatants collide in the dust, wrestling for control of their deadly automatic weaponry. Lil Zay's cohort bellows for backup after a key soldier falls in the crossfire. Blood pools on the dark concrete floor where a victim lies motionless and forgot. Smoke fills the dark, derelict garage where a shell-shocked car sits riddled with bullets. A young boy frantically searches the shadows for a way out of the slaughter. The boy scrambles across the floor as bullets tear through the surrounding metal walls. A dark smear of blood widens across the pavement, marking the end of someone. A body lies prone in the sun-drenched corridor, abandoned amidst the mounting neighborhood death. A man slumps over the steering wheel, his life leaking out into the vehicle. Lil Zay observes the wreckage with cold, detached eyes, savoring the scent of carnage. Armed guards strip the body of valuables while the neighborhood watches from the shadows. The boy clutches his chest, trembling as the weight of his reality finally sinks. He sprints up the decaying staircase, desperate to escape the reach of the mob. He clutches his camera tightly, documenting the ruin of everything he once held dear. He navigates the alleyways, moving like a ghost through the landscape of his youth. Corrupt officers patrol the streets with heavy hearts and hands deep in criminal pockets. The officers whisper behind iron bars, weighing the value of the lives they end. Ned's legacy fades into the dirt, while the younger scavengers divide the remaining spoils. A new generation of children steps into the power vacuum with ready, loaded weapons.